So tonight we're going to talk about finding a new gear. I am excited about this message because I believe that God is going to do something in many of your lives, and that many of you guys will leave here different than when you came in. And I believe that. It has nothing to do with me, but it has everything to do with what the powerful Holy Spirit and what His presence can do and how it can transform us. I'd like to share with you a portion of Scripture tonight, but I'm going to open up with one more question. Last week we talked about, is God big enough? Is He big enough to do in your life what needs to be done? And tonight I'm going to ask you to step out in faith and to ask yourself this question: is He big enough to do what He's not done yet? Is He big enough to do in your life for what you've been praying for week after week, month after month, or year after year? Is He big enough to bring that about? You have no evidence of it yet, right? You have no proof of what He's going to do, but you believe in your heart that God can do what He's not done yet. And that's called faith. Either you have faith or you don't. And the thing about faith is really interesting is it's requiring us to believe that Jesus can do what He says His Word says He can do, and it requires no evidence or no proof. See, I believe that God has a plan for me, even though perhaps I don't see it right now. I believe God can do something in my home, even though I don't see it right now. He can do something in my heart and in my mind, even though my emotions are all out of whack and things are out of control. I believe He can put every piece back together. I believe so with faith. There is a scripture in 2 Kings, which is in the Old Testament, chapter 4, and I'm going to read you a portion of that today. It says this. It says, "She saddled the donkey." Look at your neighbor and say, "Did he say donkey?"
You guys are so polite tonight. It's just crazy.
Did she say donkey? She saddled the donkey and said to her servant, "Lead on. Don't slow down for nothing. Don't slow down for me unless I tell you." So she set out and came to the man of God at Mount Carmel. Last week, you guys remember I told you about my little girl getting hit on the swings, and she cut her head open with that barrette. She had a barrette in her hair that was metal. Her head was bleeding. I don't know if you remember me telling you about that. Anyway, she was bleeding, and her shirt was red, like she lost a lot of blood. And that's what happens when you get a head cut. Well, anyway, I scooped her up in my arms and I put her in a truck. And it was one of those deals where I was running, right? And we put her in this truck, and we just are breaking loose. We're on gravel roads, and I mean, we are tearing through to get to the hospital. And thankfully, I didn't have to go to the hospital. Praise the Lord, everything clotted and closed, and it was fine. No stitches or anything. But somewhere along the way, I realized, what am I going to do if somebody gets in between me and the place that I'm going to get my daughter to, right? It just dawned in my head, because I don't know if you've ever been driving through W or Y, somebody gets out in front of you, and it's like, this is for real. Like, put the car in reverse, right? That's what I was thinking. But in this case, I was like, if somebody gets in front of me, we're going to go to the left, and we're just going to, you know what I'm saying? Like, I'm driving, and now you're in a ditch. Because why? I'm going to the hospital. That's how it's going to be. And so this mom, as we're going to learn about, she was saddling a donkey, and she told this employee, she was like, "Dude, don't slow this thing down. We are going to go as fast as this donkey can go. And when he's done and when he dies, we're going to jump on another one, and we're going to keep going." And we find out why. We find out in the story that it was because her son had died, and she wanted to get into the presence of God. Something in her life, something very valuable, had died. And I think that's where a lot of us may be here tonight is, there's parts of our life that just seem dead, right? You wake up in the morning like something is missing, something is not right, something's dead. And this woman, she lost her son. And the backstory to this, and if you go home this evening, I challenge you to read 2 Kings chapter 4. Not only will it build up your faith, but it's just an awesome version of what God can do, despite what the situation looks like. And it's an awesome version of this woman's faith, and it's cool. So anyway, this woman, she had a baby, but one of the miracles in the story was how she had the baby. Elisha was a prophet. You guys probably remember Elisha or Elijah. This is Elisha. And what happens is he was passing through this town, and I'm going to sum up about 16 verses in about a minute. So he's passing through town, and this woman, she says, hey, she says, do you have a place to stay? And he says no. And so what she ends up doing is her and her husband talk about it, and they add a guest room into their home. So they've given this man of God, he's a powerful prophet. He does all kinds of awesome things. And she puts him in her home. So each time that he's traveling to preach or to work in ministry, she gives him a place, her and her husband, in their home. And Elijah said, I want to do something for these people. These are good people. I mean, they legitimately opened up their home. I want to do something for them. She says, what can I do for you? And the woman said, we're good. We don't need anything. They were content people. They didn't need anything. And so Elijah says, no, I think I'm going to ask around and see what your need is. And so he goes around, he asks his employee, and this guy says, well, you know, her husband is old, and they have never had kids. And that's a big deal. It's a big deal now if you can't have kids. It's really tough on marriages. It was a big deal in the culture of the Bible. Why? Because you didn't have somebody to carry on your legacy or your family name. There's nobody left. And so Elisha begins to pray to God. And he is asking God to do something for this husband and wife that has been so very good to him. And so as he's praying, as he's seeking it out, he's asking God, God, I want you to give them a baby. And not just a baby, a son. Because you've got to have a son to carry on the legacy of the family. And it was extremely valuable to them back then. And so, anyway, long story short, Elijah comes up to this woman, and she's barren. She doesn't have children. Her husband can have kids. He's past the age, and all these different medical conditions. And he says, oh, by the way, God is going to make you a promise. He is going to give you a baby in 12 months, right? It's kind of different, right? So I thought about that for a long time, and I thought, what was this woman like? What was her reply, right? What do you think she thought of when she was beginning to think and receive this promise, right? Well, it's kind of like the same way that me and you are here talking tonight, right? If there's things that are not going right in your life, if there's things missing, if there's things lacking, if there's things that you really need, I stand up here proclaiming not by my name or by my promise. There's not a whole lot of meat in my promise. But when I tell you God can change your life, He can resurrect your life, He can save your life. That's a promise, right? It's a promise by the very person. Now the promise, or the problem with the promise is this. How many guys have had somebody break a promise to you? All of us. I mean, every one of our hands has got to go up. Like this morning, maybe somebody broke a promise to you. You know the problem with that promise is it's only as valuable or as confident or it's only backed up by the person who makes the promise. Right? Hey, I'm going to be there to pick you up Friday night at 6. You get ready, nobody shows. Hey, I'm going to be there, we're going to do this, we're going to talk, we're going to hang out, we're going to catch up with you. Nobody shows. I promise that I'm going to take care of you. I promise I'm going to let you do this. I promise in every one of these things they get broken. So we learn over time that people break promises. Why? Because by their very nature, their very character, we were not designed to be able to hold that part of it. But God is. And so when we talk about promises by God, we have to begin able to make one declaration. God doesn't know how to break a promise to you. For God to break a promise to you means that He ceases to be God. And if He is God, then every word that He says or is spoken to your heart, maybe He did something in your life 3 or 4 years ago at youth camp. And maybe you thought, man, that promise is dead. God does not know how to back out of a promise. It's impossible. So this woman receives this word. And she acknowledges that this promise is backed up by God. Right? This is a promise by God, spoke through the prophet Elijah, that in 12 months my belly is going to go from here to here. Right? I saw this pregnant woman the other day, and it was hilarious. Like she was standing up. This is a problem with my mind. And she was standing up next to like the counter, and like the counter was touching the deal. I was like, holy cow, I was like, triplets in there? Like, but you don't ask that because I didn't know. And so, anyway, I began to think about that for a long time. There was going to be some evidence in that promise, right? So I'm promising that you're going to have a child. Well, guess what? Somewhere in the next 12 months, something is going to grow inside. A baby is not just going to magically appear one day, right? That's not how he did it. Talk later. And so here's the deal. So somewhere along that way, what appeared not to be there appeared, right? A little bit at a time. A little bit, I began to crave ice cream. A little bit, I began to eat all the peanut butter in the house. A little bit, right? So here's the deal. God does not know how to break His promise. I don't know what it is in your life that you're needing God to fulfill. But I can guarantee you this. If He promises it, if His Word says it, it comes true. So moving on, I'd like to read you one more portion of Scripture. We're going to pick up this story. And, well, I guess I need to explain how she got into this predicament. So He made the promise. She received the baby, of course, because God made the promise. She brought the baby home. The baby grew up, and he got strong. And then one day, him and his dad go in the fields to work, and the little boy has something the matter with his head. It doesn't give us a whole lot of detail. The dad's like, hey, he tells one of his employees, take this boy to his mom, because mom's got it going on, right? She figures everything out. She's a doctor, all these different things. And so he gives him to the employee, takes him to the mom. The mom holds this boy in her lap, so he must have still been pretty young. Never mind. So here's the deal. She holds him in her lap, and the boy dies, right? So we find the mom. She's going through that urgent, panic stage, and there's probably some fear, there's probably some doubt. But what she does is very interesting. Instead of pursuing or making funeral plans, she prepares for a resurrection. Resurrection, you guys can figure out. So here's the deal. Instead of sitting at home with this dead boy on her lap, right, and calling all her friends and saying, hey, bring over the casserole on Thursday, we're going to have a memorial to this child. She says, no, I'm going to get into the presence of God, because why? He can resurrect what's dead. You know, tonight, this message, or this portion of Scripture, to me, it declares one meaning. Whatever you feel like is missing or is dead in your life, it's not over, it just hasn't been resurrected to this point. So I go back to the original question. Do you believe that God can do something in your life that has not been done yet? Because the only way that you can keep God from moving in your life is if you decide not to believe. Right? If you choose not to believe that God can move, He's not going to move because He's a gentleman. He's wanting you to allow Him. Now, He's on that donkey with you. Right? He was in that truck with me. He was prepared to run those cars in the ditch if that's what was necessary. But He went there every step of the way with me. So this woman's going, and instead of making funeral arrangements, she is preparing to get into God's presence. And so this is now going to make sense as I read the next part of this. She said this, when she reached the man of God at the mountain, she took hold of his feet. And one of the employees comes over that works for this man of God. This would have been one of his workers. He says, please. He begins to remove her from the man's feet. And Elijah says, leave her alone. And she goes up to him, and he says, and this is what the mom says. She says, as surely as the Lord lives, and as you live, I will not leave you. So he got up and he followed her. This mom knows how to get into the presence of God. What she knows is she knows how to hold on to something a little bit longer. She knew that her only hope for her son to be resurrected, to come back from the dead, to come alive, to be made new, was if she was in the presence of God. And she held on. And so I thought about this message for many nights. It's been going over and over in my mind. And I was telling Kara on the way in this evening, I was thinking, you know what? This message is called Donkeys or Darkness, right? Because we all have a choice. You choose to get on the donkey, you choose to get into the presence of God, or you choose to remain in darkness. down. How many of us are on the donkey doing 90 to nothing, getting into the presence of God, not letting anybody or anything slow you down or keep you from His promise? Or how many of you guys are at home making future funeral plans? As I was thinking about this message this week, it became very, very real to me. There is no doubt in this room, all of us need something from God. I have no doubt in my mind, from conversations, from phone calls, from interaction, just being able to watch you. There is no way that there's not one person that's in here that says, you know what, I need something from God. I need Him to do something in my life. So then the question comes, do you believe that His Word is true? Do you believe that He can make promises and keep them, and you will see them come forth? Do you have the ability to have the faith to believe that you don't have it now, but perhaps 12 months from now, you're going to hold something in your arms that you did not have before? Because God can do that for you. Everybody stand. Only want the people to come forward that have the faith to believe that Jesus can produce something out of nothing, or better yet, Jesus can resurrect something in your life that is dead. I had this old oak tree at my house, the house that we live at now. And I hired this guy, or called him out to the house to cut some trees down. And have you ever seen a tree that begins to lose bark? Right? The bark just falls off. And this thing was like, 80 feet tall. And I was like, I sure don't want this to fall on my house or my kids or anything else. And so I'm watching the limbs fall year after year. And at this point, this tree has no limbs except for two. It's got a fork about 80 feet up in the air, right? It has hardly any bark. The bark is gone. Like, this isn't good. The tree just goes up, every limb has fell off, and then it comes to a fork. So I called this guy out, and I said, hey, can you give me a bid on cutting this tree down, hauling it off, let's get it out of there. And I hated to lose it, because that's what produced all the shade in my backyard. That was the only tree that produced shade. And in Missouri, it gets hot in the summertime. And so he said, yeah, I'll take it down for $750. And I said, well, not feeling like spending $750 today, so I think I'll wait on that. So I watched it the next year, and there was this one little branch that came out that year, but it was green, and it had leaves on it. I think, well, that's strange, because if it's dead, then nothing's going to grow, right? Like, this doesn't make sense. I watched it the next year. It had two little branches that came off of it, right? 3 years later, after that initial bid, or I think it's 2.5 years, this tree is greener, and it's got branches that grow out. And when you guys come out to my house or something like that, I'll show you this tree. But now it is producing shade. I almost cut it out, cut it down. I almost chopped it up. I almost killed what I thought was dead. And now it's the one tree in my yard that is protecting me and it's producing shade. It's protecting me from the sun. There's at one point in your life when you got to make a decision. Either I'm going to cut this thing out of my life and I'm going to declare it as dead, and I'm going to prepare for the casseroles to come in because this is dead. This faith thing is dead. I want nothing to do with it, and I'm going to live in darkness for the rest of this point because I don't believe that God can do what His Word says He can do. Or there's another moment in your life when you say, you know what? Go harness the horse. Go saddle the donkey. I'm going to get in the presence of God, and I'm going to hold on to Him. And I am going to stand firm on His promises. That woman had no idea that that boy was going to be healed or filled, but she had the faith to believe that it was going to take place. I don't know what you're believing for tonight, and I don't know what you need, but I know you need something. My need in my life is going to be different from the need that you have, but I will not call something that is extremely powerful and that is real. I won't call it dead anymore. I'm going to call it alive. And I believe that my God keeps every single promise. And He has promised to save you. He has promised to produce joy and peace and hope and love and goodness and kindness and gentleness. He's given us all these things from His Spirit. But above all that, He is guaranteeing by His promise that He has a future in store for you. That your life doesn't have to look like your mom's or your dad's or other people or what they're saying about you. He's saying, I guarantee you by my promise, God is saying, I promise you that you're going to have a good life and it's going to have a good future.